Hey everybody, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby, and with me,
Abby Furchner.
you did it.
On the first try.
Nailed it.
I don't think people realize that it takes us about 3 takes before I do.
At a minimum 3 takes.
To say my name correctly.
And a lot of practice before we even push live. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. It's Thursday, which means it's just Abby and I talking shop about all things fundraising and nonprofit work. And coming to you with a different topic every single week. And it's just us. It's no other groups. We're just kind of hearing what we hear, boots on the ground, what's going on, and sort of topics that we hear, we address, and bring it to you, the listening and or viewing audience, here on the official Do Good Better podcast. Everybody hearing today, what are we talking about today on the podcast?
Oh, okay. So can I explain a little bit?
Please.
I'm just going to explain a little bit how we came up with this idea.
I would like it.
Okay?
And by we, I mean you.
Me.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't know, you should know, this week is our late summer seminar series.
Yes, we're recording that right in the middle of this brand new series that we just rolled out live.
Correct.
Every single day.
Correct.
Yes.
So every single day from noon to 1:30 this week. So you'll be listening to Thursday, so from noon to 1:30, and then Friday from noon to 1:30. Tune into our Facebook page. We're doing live trainings. We're bringing in guest experts to talk about certain things that might not be either talked about a lot in nonprofits or what we're hearing from clients, questions that they have. We're bringing in experts to answer those questions for them in a presentation. It's been super great, super fun. I've loved every second of it, but here's the but. You don't plan, well, at least I didn't because I'm a newbie and I don't know how all of this works still. I didn't plan for a possible life happens moment, speaker can't make it.
Yes.
So
you did have that moment.
I did have that moment, which we get it. We get with COVID. You got to be flexible.
Family first.
Family first.
Happens
things
all the time.
Just
Correct.
Sometimes life happens and it doesn't pan out the way you think it's going to pan out.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh no. What am I going to do? It all worked out. It was awesome. Tuesday ended up being great. But as I was leaving Tuesday's seminar, I was thinking in my head about how a lot of the times when I was back in my TV days, back when I was someone, people would ask me, do you rehearse? Like, do you have a script that you follow on? And my response was always, no, I just kind of wing it. And then when we talk with our clients about going and meeting donors or getting sponsors and things like that, a lot of times in my head, I'm like, you just got to wing it sometimes. You just got to just go and do it and just wing it, see how it goes, see how it feels. And so going back to my original story, when I was leaving the seminar, I was thinking, man, maybe I should build, a little course, a little presentation around how you just wing it, because there's a how, I guess, to it. Now that I'm talking about it, there's a how to just winging it. And next time that happens, I can just pull that out of my hat.
I like it that you have, well, this is your first event that you have been sort of put in charge of. This is your baby.
Yes.
We came up with the idea and then you just kind of ran with it. And I said, I don't want to, this is yours.
Yep.
And it's funny how much you scripted, because you have to. In virtual event settings, you have to script. You script down to the minute, not like the guesstimate amount of time. Right. Here's what slide you're going to do. Here's your slide deck. Here's your perfect PDF ebook. Here's everything's got to be perfect. And everything that we actually teach clients is to follow your gut instinct and just know enough to be dangerous and go authentically and organically, except for the fact when you have some sort of crisis hit and then now you're in pure, I'm going to just fly by the seat of my pants, improv style.
Correct.
Explain to me, because you walked in, we had a crisis. It was like a 2:30.
Yeah, 2:30, but the day before.
And we said, listen, I can't make it, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a meeting at 3.
Yep.
So we couldn't talk about it because we had a client in front of us.
And in my brain, I was like focused on what's going on.
Yep.
But in the back of my brain, I was like, what am I going to do? Like,
right.
What am I going to do tomorrow?
And then at 4:00, we sit down and we actually put a game plan together. Yeah. And within, I would say 12 minutes, we got it together. Walk me through your break. You had 90 minutes from acknowledgement of issue
right.
to problem solving mode
right.
what is your brain like? Because I'm sure there's a lot of nonprofits out there, or like people who just plan events in general, who have to fly by the seat of their pants. They have to adjust accordingly.
Mhm.
Walk me through your mental process, because I guarantee it's like everybody else.
Oh yeah. So at 2:30, I was like, oh, beep, what am I gonna do?
Yep.
That's literally my first thought. I was like, I don't have anything prepared. I can't come up and build a PowerPoint 90-minute presentation in a night and rehearse it and be ready.
Yep.
So going through my head, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I was going down the rabbit hole a little bit of like, oh my gosh, all of our social promos, what are we going to do? This is the workbook. What am I going to do with the workbook? And so I was like kind of panicking for a good like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. That was the first part of my brain. But then I started to think, okay, who else do I know in this realm in the marketing world?
I need to go back for just a second.
Okay, going back.
Well, because you 10 minutes of just pure panic. Holy crap, what the heck have we had happen?
Right.
A lot of people can't get out of the, oh my God, what happened? I'm going to give up sort of thing. So where's the pivot there? Pivot. Where's the pivot into, okay, I've acknowledged something's going to happen. I'm going to move. Where did you learn the skill set? Because that is almost as important as sort of performing on the fly, or whatever. It's the conscious effort, or it's the conscious understanding that you have to do something rather than just flounder and just give up or throw up your hands and stop.
Yeah. I never thought that was like a skill to have. I thought just everybody kind of did that. So I panicked. I panicked, and then I would say I was like, okay, well, we have to figure. I just started thinking in my head, you have to figure it out. The show must go on tomorrow.
It's funny how that phrase has completely different meaning in the theater, but it also has exactly the same meaning as it does in whatever you do, business, fundraising, whatever. The show must go on.
Right.
What happens if you don't? What happens if you just have to give up the ghost and you don't have 5 days, but you have 4 days and oops, we just didn't have a thing.
Right.
The whole momentum shifts.
And I didn't want, I'm glad we're backing up. So
Yes.
I panicked. Okay. And I would be lying if I said I panicked for 10 minutes. I would say I panicked for like a good half hour.
It's fair. You can.
I kind of went down just
exaggerate.
Like this loopy loop.
This is the magic of social media. We can exaggerate all you want.
I panicked for a good half hour, and then we went into our meeting. So I went into the meeting panicked.
Yeah.
And I was
it's a great way to go into meetings.
I was like in the meeting, and after the meeting got done though, I think the thing that I first thought of was, okay, tomorrow has to go on. I don't want to cancel it because it's going to mess up. I would rather have me just stand on stage and talk about something than cancel a day.
Yeah.
So I was like, the show must go on. We can't cancel it. We just need to figure out how we're going to replace that speaker or switch people around.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I calmed down a little bit. And then we tried to figure out how to switch people. I started to panic again because schedules just weren't working. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So.
But I think, again, going back, because I think you're racing through this because your whole brain system is now working in overdrive. And I think what you did, and look what I was witnessing, because I'm sitting there right next to you while you're sort of your brain's going through transaction, is in order to reduce any sort of panic, you have to have some sort of action to do something forward. If you don't have some sort, even if you don't have a game plan,
right,
as long as you are moving forward, you're doing something and not sitting idle. And if you're sitting idle, you have zero ability to get out of your own way, get out of your own headspace. Holy crap, it's my fault, or whatever thing you want to have in your rattle around in your brain. The minute you made the decision that you need to make a change, your whole attitude changed, your whole system shut down, and you got into like, we're going to go save this thing mode.
Yeah.
And it was very producer-esque. It was very, I'm going to adjust on the fly-esque, but there was no more panic. It was now I'm determined to do this. And I think a lot of fundraisers, to kind of go back into our wheelhouse of who we're kind of serving, is that like a lot of fundraisers will say, oh, our event got canceled, or oh, COVID-19 canceled our event, and they stop. They don't move forward. They just wait for somebody else to tell them what to do, and they go and they build up this this sort of anxiety of fundraising, anxiety of putting these things together. And the danger is they don't do anything with that. And so what you did was you just made the turn. It's like, okay, we got to do something. And your movement forward allowed you no time to worry about anxiety. What happens if it doesn't happen? Now your anxiety got shifted to something more positive, which is let's go make this happen, not wait for it to work itself out.
Well, and I kept hearing my stepdad in my head, and my stepdad would always say, complaining isn't going to do anything. Complaining isn't going to do anything. Complaining isn't going to solve anything. And so instead of complaining about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? It was just like, we're going to fix this. Here's how we're going to move forward. So I started then thinking about other people that were kind of in this wheelhouse, and it just kind of clicked with me, who I think would be able to do this in literally 12 hours. And we got to figure it out. But yeah, sometimes you just have to wing it. Like, we got on stage and I was like, I have 5 questions that are prepared. I'll bounce off of what you say.
Yeah.
Like that was our conversation before going live.
And I think that is where I think a lot of nonprofits can relate to, is that they're having a conversation with a donor, if they're having a conversation with some sort of sponsor or whatever, is that, you can go in with a core of bunch of questions, but you have to listen in order to get the cues to have a conversation, rather than I've got an order in which I'm going to do things. And if things don't go by the book, I have no other path.
Yeah.
And so using your talent for improv, which, by the way, if you're ever in theater or you're a theater kid and you did improv, or you were forced to sort of like come up with lyrics on the fly to a song or whatever that is, that's an unbelievably positive skill in the nonprofit world, in the event planning world. It's just a skill set that I would encourage everybody to do, to take on. But more importantly, it forces you to think creatively and listen, so that you can react and build content out of that.
Right. And no, I really agree with that. Don't focus so much on your questions.
Yeah.
Like, I think I maybe asked 2 or 3 questions, and then the rest I just I was listening to what Paul was saying and kind of where he was going down. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting thing you just said. Can you like elaborate on that some more? So when you're sitting with a donor, they might be telling you this really awesome story that you could really hit home with, but you're so focused on what your next question is that you totally miss it.
Yeah.
And so, have your questions, but literally have them like tucked away.
Yeah.
And just ask that first one that you really want to ask, and just have a conversation. Yeah. The more fluid, the more comfortable they're going to feel, and the more comfortable you're going to feel, because it's going to turn into a conversation, not a Q&A.
Yep. It's brilliant. I know. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit, or they worry too much about perfection in order just to go with the flow. Even though they totally understand the material, they totally understand the content, but they just don't trust themselves enough to have a conversation that feels natural if they don't have a bunch of questions, or it didn't go by the script, or they did, and then they freeze.
Right.
Rather than just going in the moment and having that.
And I understand, because we were actually talking about this. What was that? About this morning when I was over at the Mobile Pro studio.
Yeah.
And I do get a little nervous doing the intros. I know they're like little snippets of the whole seminar, but like I get a little nervous just because it is different than TV in a sense where like I'm talking to more, I would call like elite, like business people. Yeah. They're like here for a reason. They want to learn. They have great organizations, where sometimes in news I was like when I was doing like fun events like the bounce houses, I was like, woo! Yeah. So it wasn't as like professional. So I get very nervous in more high pressure professional settings, if that makes any sense at all. So I get going to meet a donor. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I have to be super professional. I have to be super serious. We need this money, blah, blah, blah. Try to not, because Monday I was really nervous for you. Yesterday and today I just kind of winged the intro. and it felt so much more authentic, and it just felt so much more relaxed. So just try to go into those meetings. Yes, this is professional. Yes, we need this money. But hey, if you just have a great conversation with them and you don't get to it that day, the number one rule, always make an ask for another meeting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it is. I think it's more authentic. I think it's natural. I think it is clever because you're not sticking to something that sounds robotic, and that takes very little skill at all except for listening and then just reacting in your gut instinct, because you know that you're in this position as a fundraiser or a nonprofit. You know you're passionate about it. You know you're not going to make too many mistakes. You're not talking falsehoods. You're not making lies up about whatever your organization is.
Right.
You're just going with the flow and you're improvising.
Do you know how cool it would be if every time you meet that donor, you always ask them for money, and this time you just listen to them and hear what they have to say?
Interesting concept.
Like, I wonder where I learned that from.
Boy, I wonder too.
I wonder who came up with that.
It's amazing. This is really good. I really think that a lot of people are going to relate to this in particular because of the inability of people to just believe in themselves that they can go and just make an ask or make a move or make a conversation or go with the flow of something that goes wrong. And if you're in the event business, things are inevitably going to go wrong. And it's just how you are prepped is important, but it's how you deal with the situation. You cannot dwell on it. You got to do something to move forward, because at least it gives you something to concentrate on and harness your anxiety to something to fix it rather than just dwell and say, like, I hope it goes away.
Right.
Kudos to you. And you've been rocking and rolling on the whole thing. It's been great.
So exciting. Make sure you listen at noon today today.
Yeah. If you're not listening to this on Friday, and if you're listening to Friday, it's the same thing.
Noon.
All right. We'll talk to you next time here on the official Do Good Better podcast. See you.